Welcome to Content Teardowns with Bernard, me. I'm the founder of Clearscope. We make a leading content-first SEO platform. We have Ross. He is the founder and CEO of the content marketing agency Siege. He's world-renowned, featured on Moz, Search Engine Land, Forbes, AOL, Hacker News. He also speaks a lot everywhere. You've probably seen him around, and we are very, very psyched to have him on our Content Teardown. The way that we're going to split this is that Ross is going to take the first portion of the auditing, like the lead of the auditing, by sharing his screen. We've already gone through, selected a set of submissions that y'all gave us, and we're gonna go dive in, get into the nitty-gritty, and then halfway through, we're gonna flip over. I'll take the lead on, the auditing and screen sharing. And if y'all have any questions, if y'all have any, keywords, URLs that you want audited, we're going to bucket some time at the end, hopefully get around to auditing those as well. So buckle up. We got some great tears of downs that are going to happen. Ross, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for the intro and having me, as always. Always enjoy chatting content SEO with you. So yeah, hopefully it's helpful. We'll rapid fire this. This one we got a set of requests from people and certain keywords they want us to focus on. Nourish, move, love was one of those. A few of the focus areas were this keyword, strength training for women, yoga sculpt, arm and back workout. Essentially a decent set of different workout type queries. So starting here and how we can think about improving that and growing the site. One of the things that first stands out about this site is the ads. Of course, we need to monetize, we need to make money. So simply saying remove the ads may not be that helpful to you. One way we've been talking about this with our clients is look at your ad blocks and essentially do a waterfall analysis of really the impact on user experience against how much it's making you. And potentially think about incremental removal of the things that are making you the least amount of money against that user experience impact. And that may help incentivize that slow removal. Another thing that's probably already on your radar, maybe I missed it on the site, is just focusing more on secondary monetization. I see you have a workout plan. Maybe you're upselling those kinds of things. Generally feel like it's more sustainable from a search standpoint to deliver a quality user experience, which often means dropping that ad flow and having a secondary way to make, or maybe it's really eventually primary to make money, because that will allow you to still have the optimal user experience in comparison. Another thing across your site, that we like talking about a lot with our clients is just low time to value. You have a quite large hero image above the fold. We'd suggest kind of narrowing that. Ideally, you're getting to content above the fold on pretty reasonable browser sizes. Here, that's not happening. If this area could be loading and maybe this top image is just resized to get that further in that first loading experience, that may help your performance. Another thing across some of your content, I noticed that is one of our personal philosophies, is just simplifying the post structure. Looks like you're engaging with FAQ type content closer to the top section of the site versus the clear workout plan. This is a more not straightforward topic, but to kind of give you an example of one that I saw elsewhere on your site was tricep exercises. So this is there's really probably 8 core tricep exercises. Whether it's a correlative or causative thing, what we've seen is you give a very simple structure where the H1, the title area, is that core keyword or set of tricep exercise in this case. Then naturally, from a structure standpoint, H2s would be a listed out naming of each of those exercises. That's something that Google and users can reliably kind of work against to potentially get you pulled into quick answers, understand that this very easily is a list of those, and also users don't have to fight to find those. I kind of do need to do so. We finally get to it around halfway down the page here, and you're kind of restructuring differently. I haven't dug into the H2, H3 structure, but if you compare that to one of the well ranking sites, ones that many companies may not be a huge fan of, Business Insider doing fitness, but it ranks pretty well. And what they do is that simpler structure where we have tricep exercises in that core H1 title area. And then in the H2 structure, immediately one, name of the exercise, two, name of the exercise, and et cetera. That's some of my rapid fire stuff. Bernard, yeah, what were your thoughts looking at the site?
Yeah, honestly, I agree with a lot of your assessments here. So I'm not gonna, spitball too much on those. I would say that some of the things that I think the content is great, honestly. I think there's just a lot of visual clutter, right? There's so many elements moving around. When I take a look at some of the really top performing things, it's kind of more of this like clear listicle where it's like 1, 2, 3. I love the GIFs personally, of the person just doing the exercises. I think it's almost there to like basically perform well, but the removing of ads, visual clutter, I know, is part of why the site exists in the first place. So I might encourage you to test it, like, maybe take a set of these pages, try reducing the ad blocks, the amount of stuff that's on the page, and just seeing, how that bucket reacts from a performance tracking perspective. Side note, I know that the founder of the site is female. When looking at the different top results, there are, like female focused ones and male focused ones. I know that there are, some of these are very female focused, right? Like postpartum workout plan. But I would say perhaps for some of your more generic posts to consider weaving in, both types of genders could just be more of a inclusive experience that could work well.
Yeah, I like that call out. When it is a blended search result like that, I will often say it needs to be, if you really want to confidently rank for that, you ideally will meet 100% of the users that search for that where they are. And the less you appeal to a segment, especially on the more competitive terms, the more unlikely it is you rank at all. Although, as you've smartly pointed out, Bernard, like some of these search results will just kind of bring in a mix of those, like maybe it's one for men, one for women, but then you're only fighting for maybe two results or two possible positions on that SERP. Moving on to Venture Lab curriculum. So this ask was to rank for elementary school entrepreneurship education or high school entrepreneurship curriculum. So one thing that stood out about this page and just the overall focus is those two terms. If you didn't hear that on first go, elementary school entrepreneurship education and high school entrepreneurship curriculum, really two different segments, high school and elementary school. One of our core recommendations is to really focus in on one topic to increase the probability you rank for that. Ideally, you could look at the search result and you see a blend between those at a high frequency, maybe above 80%, you might overwrite that recommendation. But the more you see focus on one of those two on these terms, the more likely it is you really need to create different pages. And overall, that's just a better landing page experience. So if we do this search, we do see some blend, but there's really at the top, you see more emphasis on elementary school in particular, which could be part of that. And we didn't look at the other one, but generally that thought process of segmenting can be most useful for ranking. Another thing with your title tag in particular, if we look at that last term, whoops, where you're ranking around bottom of page one, normally you do put your title, your brand name at the front. Would normally recommend putting at the end of title tags unless you're so globally well known that that has the possibility to overwrite the fact that you're de-emphasizing from an optimization standpoint. So here would suggest, unless I'm missing your saturation in this industry, probably putting it at the end or considering testing that to the degree you possibly can in search. And also with these terms, you are kind of going generic with the title tag as well. So you're ranking okay, probably because this isn't hyper competitive. But if you did take that approach for maybe two different landing pages, you might be able to increase the probability you rank for both. It could be a difficult decision because you're kind of bottom of page one for both of these. But if you kind of pushed out to two individual pages, there's a higher probability potentially that you would be able to get ranked for both of them. What were your thoughts, Bernard?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the division of, high school being different than elementary. And, if you go back to your search engine results page, I know you have that pulled up. I think that the content experience is a mismatch in terms of what we see people wanting. Like there are some that do well, right? I mean, you're obviously, rank 8 for, this particular term. But I can't help but wonder that, you could have an article that's how to teach or how to drive, entrepreneurship in elementary school, or here is a success story. So I think that there is this consideration of, keeping your curriculum page or what you currently have as what you have, maybe, framing it around, examples or, programming, that sort of thing, because that's what it looks like it's focused on. But then creating separate articles, right? Like how to instill or drive or promote entrepreneurship in elementary schools, success stories of, things that you've done. I think those should be really well. It should do really well and could actually get you multiple spots on the front page, which Google has now, very much so allowed. And they'll have, the same domain ranking as like 1 and 4 and 5 if you're covering really good stuff. The other thing I'll point out, Ross and I both happen to be in Austin, Texas, is that I do see Texas like scattered, like, kind of pop up here or there. It just makes me wonder if there is a play to kind of go after the state specific locales, right? Like kind of elementary school entrepreneurship education in Texas. And, like that just gets you another possibility of ranking. Again, this is now like pretty long tail and fairly niche, but I could imagine, you could be three spots on, this query for how to drive a state specific one and the current like content experience that you have.
Yeah, good thoughts. Oh, awesome. Moving on to a new one, multifamily loans. This was one of those spaces where I'd never seen this site before, or their family of sites, and like, wow, um, doing generally a pretty awesome job here. So it's worth digging into, especially if you're in the finance space. The query asks here were multifamily financing and multifamily loans. So if we do those type of searches, somewhat similar to what Bernard was just saying, there is some localization. So we're seeing Texas for me here in Austin. And this is commonly the kind of page that would pop up for that short-term tail. One of my core thoughts about these pages that are ranking that I see sometimes when you're getting outranked, and just generally is one of the core like recommendations we have that actually ties to that previous fitness website, is just trying to get the most important information as high on the page as possible. When you were losing, the kind of core difference to me felt like competitors were actually bumping rates up above the fold, while you weren't, even though your site, your authority relatively was much higher than they were. They did maybe have localization in their favor as well if they were a Texas website in those specific use cases. But if you do find, at least a high percentage of the time, rates are one of the variants of the ask for multifamily loans, that might be worth bumping up on all of these page types more than you currently do. Just random note, I noticed there's a typo on your about page, or at least when I looked at it. Of course, it will not be there now. But actually, I'm on the wrong page. It looks like So this business also, interestingly, I don't think this creates risk. I'd be curious to your opinion, Bernard, but they all look the same. There's many sites in this family that all are very exact EMDs, which normally would not recommend, but clearly it's working for them. This was the typo and kind of like formatting issue I was describing. That's probably worth cleaning up. But the fact you overwrite that is probably due to the fact that something that's newer and seemingly, I did notice EMD's exact match domains are starting to rank better than they were historically. The new version of these are like this kind of site where the experience is better on average. Like the new wave maybe has actually shown there is some benefit. It could drive some click-through rate. That's why PPC companies often use those to drive PPC outcomes. It's because they do a lot of good things. So that's interesting. That's probably not what you're trying to hear, but the main core recommendation I have for you is just trying to get things above the fold as much as possible. Potentially the rates, you're already doing quite well. A lot of times ranking one. And there are a few examples. This one might not be the best, but on a few other ones, you have a little more text above the fold. But here you see one of your competitors that you sometimes outrank has that experience front and center. I did see occasionally you do that multi-platform or multi-website experience. You have calculators on both sites aiming at the same terms, despite having a very similar experience. Both of them were kind of ranking bottom of page one. It probably depends on the term. It might be worth canonicalizing them back to one version if they're effectively the same experience. Maybe testing that, you could always undo it. Or otherwise, maybe thinking through, would it make sense to have a differentiated version of this calculator for this kind of site, for this other site? Maybe there are those variants I didn't dig into, but that might help your overall performance because they were effectively the same set of calculators from what I saw. Yeah, super interesting space. Bernard, what were your thoughts on this website?
Yeah, God, I just love echoing Ross. So yes, I when I first took a look at it, I'm like, oh, all right, exact match domain, like here we go. And then I took a closer look and I was like, wow, actually, this site's it's pretty darn good. So yes, I mean, all that's to say, what was submitted to us was the homepage ranking for the exact match keyword, multifamily loans. I don't think that that's going to happen because it's just a local query. You Google multifamily loans, we're in Texas, you get Texas. You have your state pages, they work. I would say, to Ross's points, yeah, interest rates, driving those up, there's this whole thing around economy and review and our experts that I don't think people really care about that. I think there's this whole right-hand block of content around like newly published and exploring the network and subscribing to like a newsletter. I think that's kind of noisy. Like, I don't think it's holding you back by any means. When I Google tons of multifamily loan stuff, I just see this site and your other sites just showing up. So, I'm just nitpicking now. I would say that the, click here to get quotes, like that's oftentimes what people want on the page. So making that more pronounced, it might actually be like even better. Like when I Google multifamily loans, it's rates and get a quote. And so, you kind of make it not super call to action-y, which is again, usually what is good. But in this particular case, I could see how, like just like get your quote here, just implement, give us some info and get your quote, custom quote could just do well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder, like, even if it's not an SEO performance thing, it could be a conversion rate optimization thing that to A/B test, removing that right rail. Could see that potentially having an impact on the page. Maybe it's a freshness thing you're going for, including that there, and people want news, in which case that might make the most sense. Some other quick things I was trying to identify just from like internal linking prominence type of thing. If those 50 pages, or really that core term is the most important thing on the site, and in turn, those other 50 pages for each state being the most important, I would probably want to link to those state pages in the most prominent locations, which normally it's not a good user experience flow to do it from the top nav, but you could show like multifamily loans by state goes to a hub, and that proximity, potentially the fact that it's more likely to be clicked via Google's reasonable surfer model, who knows if they still use that pattern or not, may drive more outcomes. Also, I could see potentially at the bottom, maybe like a map that would allow you to individually click on each without making it feel super spammy. That could potentially make sense and get that direct internal linking equity on your most important page in body. That may further help those not up as well. I believe you have it in the footer, but potentially just resurfacing in areas more likely to be clicked may re-emphasize some equity and further push those up. Moving on, 4degrees.ai. So this is kind of a unique one in at least my thoughts on it. I'm curious your thoughts as well, Bernard. So the queries that this person was asking to improve on are what you see here: venture capital CRM, private equity CRM, and then also, I believe, what was the third one? Investment banking CRM. So these three queries all have similarities in how you feel the page. We see the exact match keyword above the fold. We see it here. We're seeing talked about in this kind of subheadline area. Something I notice in a lot of these high-end software spaces is that it's actually relatively unlikely to see this happen. And that may be correlative or causative, but what I feel on the site is it does feel SEO'd. And it could be an indirect or direct factor. But what I see from a lot of people that end up winning is there's SEO present on the page, but it's often a secondary story. Branding comes first. And it's possible that long-term implication, that long-term thought process does contribute to, one, better engagement, but two, also more links. And that link contribution may help lift them above the direct SEO best practices. This site, Leggy, I was kind of trying to find a good example to show you. One of the things we've been recommending more often, we call this the eyebrow area, where you kind of still get the keyword in there. Users identify with it if they search this term, but you still make room for clear sales copy above the fold on that SaaS page. And I just see this kind of vibe, even sometimes in software not existing here. It could just be financial reporting, getting the exact match ideally in the title tag and at least close to it in the URL structure. Pretty solid overall, but emphasizing brand first. Coming off of this a little bit, it might feel painful to start with, and it's really a midterm solve, which is one of those catch-22s, is we won't get the short-term dopamine hit. But if we're building towards a midterm, long-term better brand, that might be the best way for you to rank for these. But maybe you disagree, Bernard. Yeah, curious your thoughts.
Yeah, it's, I think these pages are they're tough. Like Google and users don't love them. When I Google venture capital CRM, and I notice 4 Degrees already has like content that's like, what are the best, venture capital CRMs, or, and, to a degree, I'm also seeing 4 Degrees ranking for them. It's just one of those things where when you're competing in the SERP for this kind of a transactional query, you're only competing for like 3 spots in the top 10, 3 to 5, generally speaking. And so just the very fact that these pages are working signals to me that you're doing something right. And then, the fact that you also have content that's like 7 best venture capital CRMs also speaks that, you're doing things right. So it's, if anything, to me, more of a tempering of expectations than it is a like, is there something dramatically wrong with this page? It's just that Google and users don't really like specific use case pages. And generally speaking, the way to boost your content's ability to rank for the category of software is more of a branding play. It's more of a navigational search, like in the sense that if I Google email marketing software and MailChimp doesn't show up, I go back to Google and I Google email marketing software, MailChimp. And that basically trains Google into thinking that, yes, MailChimp is a category leader in email marketing software. Thus, I must place them, like higher up. So I think of it more as like a PR and branding consideration, and then a tempering of expectations that Google doesn't like these pages. It's just that users want your brand associated with the category more closely, and it's more of a PR and like buzz perspective.
Yeah, agreed. And your ranking number 2, as I'm sure you're aware, for private equity CRMs with your roundup experience. This is actually what we're recommending to clients, is optimizing for both. Have a roundup, have the landing page in the best possible shape, and it's possible that SERP intent will evolve over time. They are different experiences, kind of curative roundup and then the pure landing page. So I think that kind of diversifies you. There might be some argument for cannibalization, but feel like they're different enough that I'm not concerned about that, and think this is the right move, what you're doing already. I might kind of like dial in the URL optimization. Might not be worth changing at this juncture, given your ranking already. But if you ever update it in the future, that could be worthwhile. I did see a comment in Zoom asking whether or not that eyebrow is an H1 or not. I'm sure it depends on the site. I've seen people actually treat it as H1 and then have the line below it be an H2. I've heard different things about it. Transparently, I've never A/B tested this. What I've heard from Google is it's really not about what the header tag is. It's about what the size of the text is to imply importance. I'm not sure. Have you seen anything like that, Bernard, or curious if
I
you have
echo
any?
your sentiment. It's about the size and the placement in the like above the fold, if you will. So if it's like, obviously really high up and tiny, that's different than if it's really high up and big. Yeah, I think Google, I mean, lots of developers will use all kinds of fancy stuff these days, like div class, span class, and that just becomes a heading or, what should have been in H1. Google is pretty smart and they go, okay, even though that's not H1, it's big and it's high up on the page, so it's probably important. And that's how I've heard it described as well.
Yeah, it probably doesn't hurt to do this. Knock on wood, haven't seen anyone like penalized or anything to put it in H1. So obviously, sometimes what Google says and what they do, we all know are differing at times. So if it's a relatively easy change for you to do the eyebrows in H1, it might be worth that, given what we all know. So Bernard, I know we're at 30. Should I hand over to you for the next side? Or
No,
would you
let's
like
do
me to cover
one
that one?
more. I know
Okay.
we're working off this like list, and I feel like you have a lot of good thoughts on this next one. So I do want you to get in that one, and then we can flip.
Awesome. So, yeah, this is a leather, plastic, vinyl restoration company, and this article looking for thoughts on how to rank for leather restoration. So, one of the things that goes back to that education example that I see present here are there's 2 different essentially intents happening with this title. So, if we emphasize down, if you're really caring about restoration, I would probably remove prevention and make that its own article. That might have its own set of keyword demand that is interesting and drives customers for you. So narrowing in on that potentially could help you rank better for restoration. Also, something I noticed with your title tag is you're doing a different thing there. So it's seemingly a different intent. One of our recommendations is to have the title and the H1 be uniformly pretty close. We normally recommend around 90% of the same of what you'd find in the title. It's not always possible. You normally can go a little bit longer with the visible title on page, but our feeling is that tightens optimization more clearly. Google doesn't need to make a guess and hope that you just got that perfect and how you differently frame the 2 things to mean the same thing. Also, yeah, it just generally is a good landing page experience. So as you can see here, we think we're on an article about does water ruin leather? And then we drop in, it does mention that, I guess, near the end, but it's just a little confusing and that could lead to slightly more bounces and some problems for you overall. So that would be a suggestion for that article. Another article you asked for thoughts on were this one on franchise statistics. Normally our best practice is to make the title, the URL exactly the core top keyword. You're ranking bottom of page one for this, so there's mixed opinions about whether or not you should ever change the URL. If you're page two or worse, normally I would suggest changing it. You're kind of on the fence, but normally that would be the best practice out of the gate. I think you could lean into things that people are looking for in search results for this type of term more clearly in the title. That's normally age relevancy. So that would be 2024 in this case. You might be able to adjust it slightly. But if we normally search for this kind of term, we'll see 2024 and time relevancy. We do see it from WebFX. We see 2022 here, even though that's aged. We see 2024 again. That is an indication that showing that we're relevant and new will likely drive more engagement, clicks, and potentially rankings also. Another thing, just looking throughout the page, is what is the true argument here that this is better than any other article for this term? It's just a list of statistics. The statistics potentially aren't bad, but maybe there's some ways you can prove this. Some ideas would be data visualization of some of these. So maybe a few of these core topics you bring to life via some visuals. We'll often see images for these kind of terms, and we do at the bottom. That intent shows that users are looking for that. Another thing that I will look for to show indication of that intent will be the further left something is in this list of tabs, the more likely it seems to be that users are clicking that, engaging it. And from what I've seen, they essentially left align the most important, most clicked things for users, which then in turn could be ideas for how we build out our article. So images, and this will normally also find its way into the search result as it does here. We see it prominent. If it was even higher, that's probably even clearer indication that it's an important thing for your site. So adding images would be good. Another idea is first party data. Maybe you have some here. I wasn't aware of it, but that would be a differentiation for you in particular. Also, one thing we've been recommending to clients is put first party data at the top of these lists. Those are more likely to be sourced, just like a Google result. That can get you more direct links via that process, because some people will skip this page and go to the next page in order to link to it. And then it's just another thought generally. I know you're trying to generate more franchise signups. Your business seems topically authoritative for leather, plastic, and vinyl. Clearly, you're ranking bottom of page one, so you might be able to rank for this despite that. I wonder how many direct franchisees you will generate from a topic like this. But all things equal, I think you'd be more topically authoritative for all the restoration topics as compared to franchising in particular. So that's one thing to consider as well. And then the final article you were looking for thoughts on was this one on the benefits of running a sustainable business. This keyword you were looking for thoughts against was sustainable business practices. First thought on this one is just include a date. You don't really have it on any of these pages that we've looked at. And when you search a term, as Bernard sort of mentioned on that elementary term, what you're looking for is similar experiences and what these are telling you about what we should have also. So here we see a lot of dates present on the page. And what that will signify is that they want a blog type experience, a guide type experience, and also time relevancy matters. So we want to know that we're getting the 2024 version of a sustainable business practice when we create an article. Another thing I would look for that's a little more advanced is just how recent those dates are. If they've been updated in the last month, all of them, that probably means we also need to update that frequently in order to be competitive. Here it's around a year. We see actually the number one being several years old, but they're Harvard, so they get away with that, while smaller known brands are more in that year range, which is normally a good best practice, all things equal. And yeah, just running through it, you're mostly using stock photos. Would suggest kind of differentiated, higher quality photos on average to make that argument you're the best article out there. Like this feels very stocky. I think there was one other one, but a lot of these are just small variants on that stock feel. This is a little grainy on Retina. And then also I would just add, what is the goal of this article? Like you have that sustainability, you have the franchise article. This one's running a sustainable business. I'm not sure what ranking for sustainable business practices will do directly for either side of your business if the two goals are get franchisees and get customers for vinyl and leather restoration. Might be a good branding thing that could be good for PR. And if that's the reason, great. But I would just question and run that through your thought process. Are we really topically authoritative for this? If so, that's probably a good thing for ranking, but also for actually doing something for our business at the same time. Yeah, those are all my thoughts on this one, Bernard. What do you think?
Mute, unmute is there. Yes, as you were talking, I was auditing, and I know that we're about to switch the screen share. So as I was auditing, there was a lot of stuff that I found. Do you mind if I take over the screen share from you
Sure.
right now,
Yeah,
Ross?
you got it.
All right. So this is what I found, right? I'm always Googling first the target keyword, leather restoration. And, I'm like, okay, yes, right. Your points are, I think, like make this a how to restore leather. And then you can see here, it just straight up becomes like local, right? Like Austin, we do this, we do that. These are the 10 best. And then Austin, Austin, Austin. So I'm like, okay, I mean, clearly Fiverr New probably has some local pages. So I went and got me down this train where I'm like, okay, well, let's do site Fiverr New, Austin. And I'm like, okay, all right. There's a bit of a mess here. Like leather, plastic, vinyl, fiber metro, leather repair, plastic, vinyl, Austin, marine vinyl, plastic repair, Austin, customer reviews, RV motorhome, leather, Central Texas. You can see where I'm probably going with this. It's South Austin. I think there's needs to be some cleanup on this set of pages. I know that wasn't what was completely submitted, but I'm like looking at these pages, right? This is Metro Austin, this is South Austin, this is RV home, which like kind of makes some sense, but not quite. And it's just, yeah, it's just too sprawling. I do think that specific use cases matter, right? Like what we saw with this one, Austin furniture repair, and whoops, and like, oh yeah, automotive interior and premier leather restoration. So I think that, these do matter, but I don't think, neighborhoods in Austin like really matter too much. And anyways, this brings me to kind of what I kind of look at from a verticalized, I know it's just like a verticalized like solution where you farm out work to, local providers, which then reminds me of like Lawn Starter and Lawn Love. Oops, if I do like this. All right, so let's see lawn care. Like this, right? We see, the Austin and Austin and that kind of stuff. So again, this page like is very SEO'd, but I'm expecting, something closer to this style of page. And, I think you have like elements and aspects of it. And obviously this exudes SEO, but I would say that those caught my eye, and chances are there's some sort of like crawling or content thinness like that you might also be struggling with. Ross, I just pointed out all this stuff. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I agreed. Great. Yeah, that's super valuable for them to go down that rabbit hole of the real goal of what page should be ranking for leather restoration rather than that blog and how to do that. So I think those are good observations.
Cool. All right, then I'll flip over to our notes. Next up, we have Picasso, who's trying to rank for Salesforce case management. So just looking at Salesforce case management, let me just clean up. Salesforce case management, Salesforce case management. I think that, it's one of these things where it's very brand dominant. Trailhead is owned by Salesforce. So the first non-Salesforce result is Apex Hours. And then I guess earlier when I was Googling, this was 10, and there was another like Trailhead thing. In any case, you can see here, this one looks like it could be a use case page, but it is indeed not. It is a guide on, what is case management in Salesforce. And this is also a guide. All of that is to then say that if you want to rank your homepage for Salesforce case management, A, It's generally not a good idea to have your homepage. I know this is common for like that people do it, but it's like your homepage theoretically should perform for, like the CASO. And then, you have some sort of like a page here that is your like use case or industry page, which is like Salesforce case management. That said, you can see here that Google or users either want Salesforce or they want guides to Salesforce case management. And perhaps the first, nope. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be hard just to rank the homepage for Salesforce case management because you're not competing for any slots. Like Salesforce cannibalizes it all. And I would then recommend what is case management for Salesforce? Ross, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with all that. It's going to be very competitive to rank. I mean, some non-SEO suggestions would be to test PPC here. Maybe you already have. Could be the kind of search where that's the most realistic thing to rank. But it's just, I would often think a little bit longer tail potentially. But anytime there's a navigational term, like a brand type term in there, it's just going to be very hard going, unfortunately. So SEO might not be the best channel, but agree with your thoughts there. I do occasionally see homepages ranking, but it is tough to do so. It's also tougher to kind of get like a keyword in there, or like you should be brand centric right here, as we just talked about with that other SaaS company. So it's always kind of conflicting tension there.
Yeah. Cool. Got some more to go down. All right, this one. So employee engagement strategies. Let me just close this out, open up a new incognito like this. Here we go. For employee engagement strategies, again, usually my goal is to always just kind of look at it side by side like this. All right, so first thing you can imagine is that I'm staring at all kinds of different things from a mobile perspective. This doesn't feel so good, so I'll point that out. Second thing is that this is a recurring theme, I feel like, in this content teardown, and also in a lot of ways, probably like debunking a lot of classical SEO theories. This one, I feel like, has so many of them. This, all right, stock image doesn't say anything or do anything. Hero images were cool, not so cool anymore. People first, yes. Who is people first, right? I'm on Engage Rocket. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I want this written by a subject matter expert. So calling that out, yes, author bios are becoming more important. In some way, shapes, or forms, they might become the new hero image. But then I guess we'll see what the new that is. The last thing is this, like, I don't know, Ross, I do want to hear your thoughts on this. I've kind of been bashing this. Like I think when EAT first like came and like citations or statistics or something like really first entered the fold, everybody like started saying, yes, we need some statistics in the like first two sentences, a link out to, some sort of a citation. I feel like that's like, if hero images was like, the 2013 to 2018 like SEO best practices, I feel like citations are like the 2019 to like 2021 best practices. I don't know. I'm just gonna pause there because Ross, what do you think about this?
I do think it's good to try to grab someone's attention here. It has to make logical sense, but like if you do have some great statistic, ideally it would be first party rather than third party to push out. That can be helpful, but yeah, it can be a little overdone. I don't know if like the random user will notice that's SEO'd as much as we SEO geeks
SEOs
do.
are like looking at
Yeah,
it.
yeah, not yet. We haven't been
Yeah.
uncovered, but
Yeah, all in all, it's like SEO to the T, right? I look up this table of contents, it's like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff there. And then it starts with well, we can just look at the table of contents. It just starts with like, what are employee engagement strategies? It's like, yes, well, we're here because we want employee engagement strategies, right? Like the 8 employee strategies, the 25 most effective, the 17. And this is one of those other classic SEO things where it's like 5 benefits to bone broth. Like, what is bone broth? It's like, well, really, people are wanting this. And the fact that this, isn't like up here is sort of, kind of a shame to me. And then, my other comment here would just be that it's a quantity game. So 5 is not much. And, everybody's like 25, 17, 21, 9. So more tends to be better. And then this title tag too, just kind of, it exudes SEO. So these are my main comments and thoughts about this. Any other thoughts here, Ross?
Yeah, agreed. Just on the long side, I would add, I agree that you should have more results. Ideally, you cut other things out in order to accomplish that. Cut out the fluff in order to, like, this post shouldn't be longer than it is, probably, to still accomplish more results. We normally will say you don't want to go skyscraper and feel like you need the most results. Ideally, you're just competitive with what's on the SERP is sort of our new guidance, because that can lead you towards putting things that will actually not engage your employees whatsoever. Maybe they all quit after you do that tacky thing for them. I do think this is another post structure problem. Like, you see that kind of complexity there. We like that whole second section, how to implement, might be a little too much. That might be what you want to kind of drop out of this list potentially. And then I think there's a lot of stock photos in this. They're not adding a lot of value. We normally will aim for always having value additive images. Like, is it maybe some kind of template for these engagement strategies that you could print out or email to your team to immediately make use of? Those are the kind of things that will add value versus just kind of taking up space.
Yeah, all great thoughts. Now we're like kind of running up on time, so I'm gonna do one more, and then I want to do a just rapid fire on people who are attending live. If there's something we didn't get to that you submitted that you wanted, like we'll just spitball it and go from there. I'm gonna end with this one because it's kind of this also local service page, and I called out some criteria that I think generally is required. I'd say the most common mistake that seems recurring with a lot of these like local service page recommendation, you can see here, right? I just Google's like saying it, is that when I Google it, Google's like, I want to know your location. It's all very location, right, centric, right? So this one says Michigan's most respected credit reporting firm. And, it kind of has here, but everybody wants the head topic. It's like you're not going to get the head topic. You're going to get the local like result. That said, I know within law that you're like, your common, quip is that like, well, I can be an identity theft lawyer anywhere in the world, or, whatever, like as long as I'm practicing in the United States, like it doesn't matter if it's, Texas or whatever. Well, in Google world and perhaps in user sentiment world, unfortunately, that's just not how it works. Google probably just has some sort of a requirement of sorts that legal related terms are all just kind of like within the state at the very least. It probably has to do with like, being barred in different states. And they're just like, yeah, that should always be the case. So, you will see some, I think, like really global firms, like potentially ranking, like this one kind of strikes me as potentially that. And those are generally going to be the law firms that have like just become like associated with the category. Again, I don't know anything about law, but maybe Morgan is like the go-to. I don't know where this thing's crazy, but yeah, maybe they're gonna go to for identity theft, and so therefore they can, or else you kind of are kind of playing in the local thing. So that's my main comments there. In terms of the actual page structure itself, I feel like people oftentimes again get lost in the SEO, and really, yeah, I think you need to like kind of know that like the core important criteria of like how service pages work is typically within the context of just proving to the user that like you're legit and that you can be trusted, right? It's like oftentimes I think, we have the tail wag the dog in at least these types of pages where we're like, oh, like let's include the FAQs and let's include, all of this stuff that's all good for SEO. But good for SEO is in these days becoming synonymous with good for the user. And in that way, different search queries will deserve different criteria. Service pages, right? Calls to action, you have them clear, this is good. Generally, I'd also like an email, like calling is great, a map on this, you have it here, but like just like come visit us. Again, this is meant to be more of a Michigan identity theft lawyer page, and people might want to swing by your offices. So the location with the map, social proof and testimonials, I'm like kind of seeing them ish here, but this doesn't really speak to me. There's not clients or users that are like, yes, link clip helped me get out of this or fight that. And those would be good. And then lawyer credentials and photos. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe I was looking for IP lawyer Austin, but let's take a look at this one, maybe this one. This one, I think, yeah, this one, right? It's like, oh yeah, yeah, I do want to like work with this person, and I can see the Austin team, and yes, wow, yes, you've got all of these things, and like really that's it. Clear telephone number, clear address, and then the map right here. So I'm going to say those are the core things that like this page really doesn't exude as much of. And then from there, it's going to be some of the other SEO specific things. Ross, over to you.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. Your final one on the fr.com was a thought I didn't consider, but just seeing the site again, many lawyer sites all look like the consumerlawyers.com site. They have that same kind of just slightly dated feel compared to what we see in tech. And this FR site, clearly outperforming many people, is more modern. And that's an opportunity for a lot of lawyers to take a more aggressive step forward with a trustworthy modern website like this. Obviously, it's an investment, but I don't see that much on any legal sites I looked to. So that could be an idea. Obviously, it's a big bet, but so often I see sites that invest in that kind of a user experience will go a long way. But the thoughts I had in the doc are in legal, it's so hard to get links. Relative authority is quite low, but it's just difficult. So you, relative to some of your competitors, I think you were like 30-ish range in domain rating. Also, getting links can be very difficult for lawyers. One of the things I've seen people be successful with is like statistics or maybe trends, assets against your specific practice area. So hypothetically, identity theft statistics, or there's also specific subvariants of that specific thing. Like how often do people get their identity theft stolen? Ideally, you have first party proprietary data around that. But if not, curating good results, visualizing it well is a good thing. But tying it to each of your practice areas is a topically relevant way to do it. You likely can't rank number 1, 2, 3, but that's probably enough. If you can get a few of these ranking, you update them once a year, you can do quite well. So I shared an example in a tangential personal injury market. I just saw ranking for texting and driving statistics where they offer services around that may be helpful.
That's great. We're like running up on time. So I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I know I wanted to get one live, but I guess we will have to pocket that for another time. Ross, this is awesome. I always love hearing you tear down things. And, when you were doing it at Brighton, it was definitely like, oh yeah, like, and also with everything going on with SEO and AI and helpful content, I feel like there is just so much confusion, so many bad habits, so many old habits that we continue to see people make. And That's because search changes very quickly. So before I wrap it up, I figured I'd ask you any concluding thoughts that you would like to impart upon our live attendance.
No, yeah, thanks everyone for attending, the good feedback so far. Yeah, I'd love to do this, Bernard, again. Like, this is a lot of fun and hopefully it's useful for people.